Okay. Is this working? Okay. All right, well, we'll see how this goes. I've got this set to. All right, well, we'll see how this goes. I've got this set to. All right, well, we'll see how this. Yeah, so it's set to medium rendering, which last time I had to downsample from to make it work, to make it not stutter too much. But I'm hoping that the reason I had to do that last time was, in fact, because of my roommate also being on a video call. If I have to downsample again, then this game, the text may not wind up being super readable. And that's, suboptimal, but what you're going to do. This is on Vice because I am not as elite as Jared with a setup to allow me to stream my actual Commodore. I do have an actual Commodore 128 behind me that I can play this game on and have within the last couple of months, but that's not suitable for streaming. This is Sci-5 Trading Company is the name of this game. And I don't think had an Apple II version. I believe it came out for the Commodore and the Atari. And I have a browser looking at my own Twitch channel, but with the video turned off so that I can see the chat. Hopefully that won't consume much bandwidth. If I have to, I'll do chat by phone. This is why I wanted to be using the other thing that I was trying, which was Streamlabs OBS. So we will try this, and then I will downsample again if I have to. I know it works pretty well if I do that. It's just harder to see what's going on. So Sci-5 Trading Company, this is a game where you are the captain of a ship who is just trying to take cargo from one place to another. I am just going to choose the shortest of these three routes so that the game is not, that I'm not doing this all afternoon. And also so I have a chance of actually winning. I have literally, in my years of playing this on the Commodore, never successfully completed a Splytux Pliblix 300 parsec trip. Never managed one. Always get blown up. So the game is joystick controlled, but you can also hit the first letter of whatever option you're choosing. So the first thing that happens, and Jared, I'm absolutely going to hit you up on helping me get Streamlabs set up. I think the biggest problem that I have is that I really want an overlay, and I can't think of a better idea than an Ultima style one, and that feels way too much like ripping you off. So I'm going to have to come up with something. But in any case, there are, I think, 5 departments on the ship, and each one has 6 candidates that you can pick. Here we're looking at who we want to run our weapons. So Boris, for instance, he's good with he's expert with the cannons. He's good with missiles and thermos. That means he's mediocre, or actually under weaknesses, he is lousy with blasters. Those are the 4 weapon types. Loner and poor communicator. Yeah, it could be worse. I actually usually run with Boris, My most recent test run, I tried this dude. He's a droid. Sometimes that's problems, sometimes it's not. Excellent with the blaster, not lousy with anything, not great at communication. That's actually pretty okay. Yila here is really good with 2 weapon types, which is nice, but can't handle stress, not very self-motivated. Can't handle stress. Each person on your ship is at any given time either comfortable or stressed, depending on what's going on. And if they start breaking down under stress, then it's going to be harder to get out of the stressful situation. There's some people where it's not super awful if they break down under stress. Like the navigator, during the stressful situations, the navigator has the least to do. But your gunner, breaking down under stress just means that you're not going to blow up the ships that are making you stressed. So I never take a gunner. Also, not self-motivated means will never start shooting on her own. Requires me to say, yo, go shoot. Hot-tempered means might shoot at non-hostile ships. That's not great. On the other hand, he's a really good shot. Let's look at Scullard. Sometimes gets philosophical, so that means takes a little while to respond to your orders, and poor stress. And then the little teddy bear over here, not self-motivated. So we're going to go with the droid. Scanning department. Scanning does 2 things. Info scanners just gives you general information, what's in the system, what routes are available to you. And then the other important thing is tracking lock. You can't start shooting at somebody until you have a tracking lock on them. Jaru, however, doesn't like working with males and vac droids. Also doesn't take commands well and can't handle stress well. So I hope she's amazing at other stuff because that sounds terrible overall. One of these days, I think at least once I've tried an all-female run just to see how good she is, but that was like 30 years ago. Fizo, real good with the info scanner, however weak with tracking lock. That's not good. Strength is strong telepathic. That's good. Communicates well, responds quickly, reacts well under pressure, but poor with the lock is going to make dangerous situations more dangerous. Bluston can't handle stress and is not self-motivated, so screw that. Intergalactic troubleshooting expert, I don't even know what that means. Family man who tends to overcommit. I have no idea what most of that means. That's amusing, and maybe I'll try that. Doesn't respond well under pressure. Nargo is my usual go-to because quiet and socially introverted. I don't really care if she actually sends me messages when I need her to. But she's only good and okay with the systems. So who was I going to experiment? I was going to experiment with Mike. I was going to see what the hell overcommit means. Navigation. Risk analyst. Info scanner again. Interpreter. Poor at evasive maneuvers. I mean, okay, good with evasive maneuvers. Has a temper if challenged. Sure. Engineering. So what navigation does is they do the evasive maneuvering. You tell them how fast to move the ship. You tell them what route to take. Engineering dictates what things are getting power at any given time. I usually go with Wilfo. And Wilfo's problem is that he's frail, and that means that if his I'm spacing on the words I'm looking for here. But yeah, if the life support and engineering goes, you need to fix it quick because he won't last long without it. Your crew members can die. You can still complete a run if one does. But you can only do things at a much lower level than having an actual person assigned to that is. Repair. I'm just going to go ahead and welcome Brew to the crew. Here we are. Here's my 5 people. At this point, I have to remember to swap discs. Otherwise, the game will crash when I try to accept the crew, and I will have to reload, and that takes a while. So, I don't know what it is. I remember in the old days using Vice being able to tell it, and turn sound back on too, being able to tell it, hey, you're just emulating, so fast forward this load process. I can no longer find options to do that. So when the game starts, we're going to start out docked. We'll have cargo. What the cargo is unspecific, except that it can spoil. And we will get to choose one of 5 routes to take. Basically, they're straight, middle left, middle right, far left, far right, or port and starboard. And risk values for each of them. Evidently, I actually read the manual for the first time in 30 years a couple days ago prepping for this, and learned something that I think I had never realized on the Commodore. I had not realized that the scanner can tell me what weapon is best to use against somebody. So I was always running with Boris and just firing cannons at everything because he's so good with them and hoping that would get me through. I think that's suboptimal, and maybe that's why I never won the really hard runs. So first thing to do is pick a route and then go through to engineering and rearrange the power rankings, the priorities. You have a reactor, and it provides a certain amount of power, and if you want to do everything at once, you can't. So there will be times when you will turn off the shields to get more power, or time when you are charging the shield battery, but then you can shunt that back to low priority once it's at 100%. Similarly, you can charge the emergency battery, which can give you some additional power for a little while, but only starts at like 50% charge. You can start a run by just charging both of them, but then you're almost guaranteed to be late and lose money when you get there at the end. This load takes a really long time. Fortunately, once the game starts, you don't wind up with any long loads. You can move at between 1 and 8. And I determined in my test run a couple days ago that if you basically travel at speed 2 and never stop, you'll get there basically exactly on time. And that's better than I expected. You cannot run faster than 4 without giving it higher priority. And one of the other things that I tend to do is pick a weapon that my particular gunner is poor with and just turn off the power to it. Just say, I'll turn you back on if the other ones get damaged, but for now, if I turn off power to it, I can still fire the other 3, and it gives me more power to be going to shields or batteries. In the repair dock, there are 7 droids, and you can order how many work on which repair things and at what priority. There are some things that if you assign too many droids to, they'll get in each other's way. Some things where too few droids they can't really handle. Droids can get damaged, so you need to decide when to take droids off of fixing, the reactor to get them to fix another droid so that you can more quickly fix the reactor and the shield at the same time. And you really like the repair person to be self-motivated because it's real helpful if they start fixing stuff before you get there, because you're frequently running around looking at other stuff. The default screen that I tend to have up is the scanning screen, so I can see how many more enemies I've got running around. Hey, we have loaded. Probably. Okay, the disk is still going, but we're off that screen. So, yeah, robots. Robots are good. I usually run with a robot as my repair person, but the last run I did, I tried Brew, and I thought she did a pretty good job. She's bossy, which is hilarious, and she'll be really snarky to you when she finishes jobs and tell you how great she is. One of the subsystems of the game is dealing with people's messages. You can set the game up to just automatically route messages to your screen in front of whatever's going on. I find this inconvenient. And then there's also a UI for going through the messages that are lining up as your various crew members try to talk to you. And frequently there'll be things like, I finished my jobs. It's like, great, thanks, I noticed. But sometimes it's, the gunner saying, I've decided to start shooting at this dude. How's that? And then you can run over to the gunner section and cancel his orders or whatever. Or you might find out that somebody's life support was hit when they send you a message saying, hey, it's getting hard to breathe in here. So, good God, this takes a long time to load. This may take longer to load on Vice than it does on the actual Commodore. This, I don't know almost anyone who's heard of this game, but it was one of my faves growing up. So here we are. Here's the view. And we see on the left we have 4 weapon types. To the right of that is the shield, and in the center of that dot is the battery. We have the demand and supply of energy. We have the current ship orientation. We are currently stopped. I have no messages waiting. And so that's where things are. Let's read the status report and scan. We've got one person, but since I'm docked, it's going to be friendly. I have a thing. I will acknowledge a message. Thank you. So, engineering. I always do this. I'm still in the messages section, and then I go engineering, and it's like, show me an engineering thing. Okay, I turned down the game volume. So when that finally catches up with Outbound, let me know if that worked, or if I should turn it up a little bit more. So, looking at engineering. So currently everything's enabled, and I don't remember what the robot is bad at guns-wise. Display shows the power priorities, and currently everything is active except charging the shield battery, and that's obviously no good. So for the moment, I am going to rank the weapons at the bottom. Let's just not send any power to the weapons, but let's get my batteries charging. So the battery's shield is at 57%. Once that hits full charge, I can lower it in the priority list. Whenever I take hits, it will drain the shield battery, and then when the shield battery runs out, the shields become useless. So you have to keep juggling that. Navigation status. These are my options. And because I wasted so much time getting the stream started, I'm going to go ahead and stick with shortest path. And it is currently my highest priority. And this uses the priority system because everything does, but you're just following whatever's in it. And so, what the hell, let's start moving. You can see that the demand for energy has now outstripped the actual supply. So, if we look here at the power priorities, at speed 2, we have 1 weapon still available to us. It is getting partial power. So, let's look at the scanning. Let's get the current report. You finished scanning. How lovely for you. We have a scout flying around us. It'll randomly alternate between aft and fore view. And you can see The ship is currently steady, and the little thing to the left is speed 2. That'll be wobbling or showing directional triangles for what direction we're currently evasive maneuvering in. I never figured out if evasive maneuvering while going faster is more effective than evasive maneuvering while at speed 2, but I know that if you stop dead, that's great for power because you don't need to feed power to the engines anymore, and it means no more pirates will start attacking you because they attack when you get to them. But it also means that the stuff you're currently wrestling with is going to start beating the crap out of you. So let's see, is my battery charged? My battery's charged, so charged shield battery is now bottom priority. It is getting no power, and we have one more weapon. We now have the missiles and the blaster available to us. I'm going to let the emergency battery keep charging for the time being. Let's run the status report again. We've got another one out there. Are we examining it yet? I will order you to examine it. But I think you already were. Yes, you were. So, it is an unknown. It is currently friend, and it will be until it attacks us. We can see that the scout, it's suggesting that I fire cannons, but I'm not going to shoot at the scout, because that would be mean. Kiffbach. It is possible to play this so much that you recognize the alien names and figure out which ones are going to attack you in advance. I'm not sure I ever got to that point. Maybe I did. I'm certainly not there now. So, engineering. How are my batteries looking? Ah, somebody's shooting at me. And I'm shooting back. So, I'm going to leave things going. It thinks I should fire cannons. I don't currently have cannons available to me. So, let us rank the emergency battery to 5. And that brings the rest of my weapons back up. So, hey, fire at will, the cannons at B. And I have to specify at will, otherwise he'll only fire a certain number of shots. Something damaged? Something was damaged, and she fixed that already, and she's being snarky at me about it. And I've blown somebody up. So, let's check and see. Anything else damaged? Nope. You're telling me that you blew it up? Yep, there it is. And I need to remember, I had forgotten for a while that you could interact with everything by hitting the first letter. And that makes the game a lot more playable. When I played it again on the Commodore a couple months ago just to see what it was like, I was like, how was I ever playing this? Because getting through all of this with a joystick is just terrible. And I had forgotten that there's actually is a keyboard interaction with stuff. The arrow keys don't work. Oh, you're a foe. What should I shoot at you? Cannons. Sure, let's do it. Start your shooting. Should I go into evasive maneuvers? There's just one. I think I won't yet. Yeah, there's still just one. How am I doing? Am I on time? Oh, I don't have lock yet. That's why I'm not shooting yet. I'm currently a little bit late. Possibly the amount of time that I spent in dock. So, once I've got this guy blown up, I'll... Am I not examining him yet? Is that what's going on? Yes, thank you. Lovely, lovely. You want to see that? Okay. I've got a lock. I've got firing orders. I've got crap in the way. There we go. That was amateur hour. Alright, now we're firing. Because it is also possible the rightmost thing, type, foe, lock, yes, position, 4 in range, is what that means. Half in range now, etc. So you can have a lock, have ordered to shoot, and not be shooting yet, because they're out of range. So you decided to shoot on your own, which is fine. I don't have suggestions yet. So, get fired blasters. And I can change that if I get a suggestion. Hey, engineering, how's the battery? Oh, the shield battery is in a bad place. So, we're gonna... Alright, got the 5. Does it get anything? No. Priority full. What weapons do I lose? I lose the thermos. That's okay. That could be worse. Yeah, so let's get that shield battery charging. We've got a foe out there. Have we examined it? No. That's everybody shooting at me today. That's 2 people shooting at me. It is time to switch to evasive maneuvers. Weapons have started shooting. How nice of you. Don't have suggestions yet, so let's just fire the blasters. Oops. And then let's fire the other one. Because this guy's particularly good with the blaster, so when I don't know what else to use, I'll just fire blasters. Shield battery's really taking it out. There's more stuff out there. Oh, no, there isn't. Okay. Something took damage. Oh, one of my weapons, the cannon, took damage. Alright, let's get it fixed. It's fixed. Navigator is just bitching about the engine being broken at the door. Switching up to one foe. The weapon I'm firing is still working, so I'm okay with that. Just more messages. Yes, I know. Scanned everything lovely. Okay, there's nothing out there. I'm fixing everything. So that's good. Each section has its own theme song. The problem is, I don't need to be evasive maneuvering anymore. Problem is, I want the scanning status report up 90% of the time, but the scanning rooms music is the worst music in the game. So I kind of get in and out real quick and hope that it doesn't start playing music. Hopefully that is everything is fixed. Yep. Being snarky about it. Engineering, how's my batteries looking? Still needs to charge, but that's fine. We've got something and you've decided to start. Yeah, we've got a lock on it already. So that's lovely. So here's the scanning music, and it's just kind of eh. Hey, I'd order you to examine the other one because I don't think you're going to do it on your own. Xantog, I wonder if they're hostile. I'm going to guess yes. Most ships you encounter are hostile. I'm sure that, maybe it's optimal to run through and just shoot everybody down. But you lose money at the end because you have to pay reparations for every friendly ship you blow. Okay, you've scanned everything. Cannon's been hit. You're taking more power even though you're not doing it. You're not using it. Navigator always complains about that. Repair is fixing stuff on her own and has already fixed it. So, we're supposed to fire the thermos, but I apparently don't have power to that. So, I'm going to fire the blaster instead. You want missiles. We'll fire missiles at you once the other guy's dead. And hey, look, he's dead. So it's really hectic. Like, on the long run, especially if you're flying kind of fast, you wind up with more ships on your scanning list. Because both sides of this, this is 2 columns, and you wind up with more ships than fit there. And some are friendly, and most are attacking you, and stuff is That was, you know, stuff is in need of repair, and I'm just going to fire blasters at you. Sometimes you just start shooting without going through and going into the scanner to figure out what's the right thing to shoot. We have lost our 4 shields, and our aft shields are damaged. So let's get that. Let's get some droids on that. How's power stuff? Shields. Shield battery is still charging. That's good. That's all we've got there. So this isn't so bad. I wonder if one of my problems is that usually I defaulted to traveling at speed 4, which means turning more stuff off and also running into more pirates at a time. Got another person there. We're still a little behind, but I'm not super worried about that. Okay, great. We blew somebody up. Lovely, lovely. You're shooting at me. Did not mean to get a weapon status report. Yeah, but you're dead. So that was good. Nothing out there. Could probably speed up. Let's see how the shield battery's doing. Oh, yeah. Let's speed up a little bit. Let's try to make up some time. You can see she's stressed. Her hair is flipping out because we're in a bad sector. You know, you'll see sweat drops or something when people are stressed. Please examine, everyone. And we've got a foe. So we are going to drop to 2 and evasive maneuver because I don't want too many things coming up on me at a time. Also, I want enough power to get more of my weapons working. Scan, examine that last dude, and give me the tracking list. I should be firing missiles at this guy, and I will do that. And I will just go ahead and fire, blasters at this one until I figure out a better idea. Scanning is complete. Yes, I know we're in a bad place. You keep telling me that. You're always going through a bad place somewhere. Like, I don't think there's a route where you can be like, travel straight forward for the first 10 parsecs and then go left. I don't know. Seems goofy to me. Somebody else to examine now. More people to examine. You're going to tell me you blew something up. And you're going to tell me that. So, more ships. But you see that ship L is a scout. That's a friendly, so it's a good thing we didn't blow it up. I got 5 ships around me, and that's... Oh, and one's shooting at me. Two are shooting at me, and I don't know what to shoot back yet. So, as per usual, we're just sending some blasters at them. Got one of them. So in the navigation status screen, whoops, I mean the scanning status screen. I don't care about the navigation status screen right now. It shows the little 3 curved lines for I have scanned or am scanning this person, and the circle is weapons are being fired at this person. And the gunner won't shoot 2 weapons at a time. Like, I can't say fire missiles at O and cannons at P. They just fire at somebody until they're dead, and then at somebody until they're dead. So 5 ships around me that all claim to be friendly, but that makes me super nervous. You can also, in theory, travel fast enough that you leave ships behind. Pirates will eventually give up, but that's not reliable. The one time you do that is when you're real close to your destination. You can just turn off the weapons, gun it, and make it to the final station. And get your money. That's fine. Do I know what to shoot at this guy? Nope, no idea. So, as per usual, because the status will show you everything that's around. The display will show you everything that has been examined, at least somewhat. And so if you keep this screen for too long, you might miss that other ships have started following you around. That's really cool. Like that one. This is still the only foe, but it's not free, so I'm not shooting at it right now. I'm going to shoot now. Do I know what to shoot at R? Yes, I should shoot cannons. Fire oil cannons at R. And yes, I have orders, high priority orders to shoot F, lower priority orders to shoot R, but only to go ahead and shoot it. Really big company itself. Parents, broken, ships. So far, really just how this is a hard sound. At the time, I think the right thing to do. Whoops. And we're going to separate with thing. That. I was going to see if it was on the shoot, but he blew it up before. That's fine. Next, we got one enemy to shoot at. What I find a little weird is that self-motivated gunner will fire a couple of shots. So never switch it in the middle. But they barely fire as much as the best. I can do that for, play balance. Fine. That's good. Shot at. Wait, what? Yeah, I've got to remember this scout. Let's see. So, power to the engines. I currently have no weapons. I'm going to try to make up some time and see if I can at least get there on time. If you start running particularly late, your scanner person will start telling you that the curriculum is decaying. If I'm used to running with a different scanner, telepathic, and so she would tell me that she's getting clairvoyant visions of the stuff spoiling the home. I don't know what this guy will say. Maybe I won't need to find out. No, somebody is. Now somebody is shooting at me, and that means I need to slow down so that I have power. I could do other things. I could reduce power to shield. Goofy. Why don't you shoot at that? And as soon as you've encountered enough ships, you move back around. Also, to the left of the basic maneuvering thing, the speed to the left of that, we've got the triangle showing on evasive maneuvering. To the left of that, there's a little black circle with a dot in it, and evidently that dot is telling me that the info scanners are still working. But we should be firing for a moment. So we're just going to fire blasters. Just do it. Taking some hits here. I expect Mr. Kiffbach there is going to start shooting at me soon. Let's make sure that these two are all that's here. It is. And something needs repairs. The force shield. She's got that taken care of. But it's nice, the amount of information that you can get on that dashboard is really nice. Once a lot of stuff starts going to pot, you need to actually go into the repair section and say, all right, show me the status, show me what stuff's here, let me prioritize stuff. But I can see that currently everything's working pretty well. Although I do have to wonder, how the shield battery is currently holding up. We've got another foe. So yeah, my usual thing here and now is start shooting the good weapon and then go and check and see if I should be shooting a different weapon. And I should be shooting missiles at the Kiffbach. And then the other dude down there is still friendly, but he's also a Kiffbach. So I think I'm going to preempt this. I'm also going to assume that missiles are also good for him. So I'm going to shoot at him while he's friendly. Although last priority, so he may have started shooting at me by the time I start shooting at him. A blaster's been hit. That's no good. Is anybody working on that yet? Yes, it's already fixed. See? This is why I like having a self-motivated repair person, and okay, the missiles now need repair. But they can need repair without being destroyed. If they're just damaged, then they just take more energy to run, which in this case means pulling energy away from other weapons, which is no good. I default to assigning 3 droids to things. It's a pretty good baseline. So let's get that shield repaired. Cargo is starting to rot, so we are behind. What have I got out here right now? Let's do that. Let's see if I should be using something besides blasters. I should be firing cannons at E. So, cannons at E, and let's bump that up to top priority. And then I think both other orders are also shoot at that one dude. So now we're just waiting for him to come back into range. And sometimes when they're out of range, instead of coming back into range, they'll just leave. But let's see. How are we doing? Did we make up any time? 97% on the cargo. Distance 4. Is that close enough to just say screw it about the enemies and gun it? Let me kill this one dude. And then I think I kill power to the weapons, prioritize the shields and the engines, and accelerate like a mofo. And so let's see. What's my priority here? Shields, batteries fully charged. Shields and engines are top priority anyway. So, oh, I'm here. All right. I spent too much time dithering. So here I am. I lost 3.5 million of the cargo. Or no, 3.5 million is what it cost me to onboard the cargo. This should have been a 12 million trip. So I lost 0.4 million for losing 3% of the cargo. I made 4.7 million for bounties on killing a bunch of pirates. We can see on the right the list of specifics there. I didn't shoot any allies. None of my people died. I didn't roll in early. I didn't roll in with stuff needing repair. That's the game. That is Sci-5 Trading Company. I hope you enjoyed it. But now I will go ahead and switch to actual Dark Unknown. But I thought that some of you folks that are interested in the stuff that Jared streams might be interested in that game as well. While I long since have no idea where the manual went or anything, I actually do have a physical copy of that game and all. It was absolutely one of my faves for when I was growing up. If I wasn't playing Ultima or something Gold Box or whatever. So at popular request, I don't know who's still around, who's still paying attention. Hopefully I'm not cutting out very much. Yeah, well, I checked it on Wikipedia the other day, and I think it's what it said was that the versions were just Commodore and the Atari 800, I think. So, I was a Commodore partisan. I loved the SID chip. My best friend in middle school and most of high school. So, dude I met in 8th grade because he transferred from one side of town to the other, and so switched middle schools. And he showed up first day wearing the Ultima 5 Warriors of Destiny t-shirt. So I immediately walked up to him and made friends. And he had an Apple II, and we would playfully argue about which was better. And he and I and one other friend, I remember we were playing Ultima 4 all at the same time, and we would trade information. We would, like, hey, I'll tell you who to talk to about the Orange Stone if you'll tell me who to talk to about the Skull of Mondane. Like, we wouldn't just tell each other hints. No, we had to trade information. It was goofy as hell. I don't remember why we did it that way. But, you know, at the time, there was no internet. I don't think I wasn't on any BBSs yet. That was another year or two. And so my options for hints was calling hint lines, buying Invisiclues if I was playing Infocom. And boy, did I do that. The Invisiclues for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy were glorious. Or the computer game section of Dragon Magazine. Don't remember for sure whether I ever got hints for Ultima 4 out of that, but boy, I remember getting hints for 5 and 6 there. So I was going to build the dungeon, but I could also run around a dungeon and see if it works. And I'm quite sure that the lower levels are not going to work, and I'm going to have to debug them. So, the reagents for, I actually have two of these right now. This is the spell book from Ultima 4, because one of them, I believe it's the one I'm holding right now, though it might be that. No? Yes. Because this one, I did stuff like write down mana costs into the book. Or I thought I had written down what reagents were required for, like, Resurrect. But I guess I did that in my other notebook. But I did write, can't really see it because... but in pencil, you can see there's a 45 written underneath the text of the Resurrect spell. And I later got an opportunity to get another set of the manuals for this. So I have a set that are pristine and a set that I doodled in. But over there on my desk behind my monitor, I even actually have the little notebook that I took my original notes in for Ultimas 4 and 5. And one of my regrets actually is that I tried to do it all in just one page. So if I wrote down, talk to blah about foo, and then I did it, and then I had something else that I learned, I might erase it and write something else down. And now I kind of regret that. It's kind of too bad. So I had to add a loading press any key screen because of this runs in, this is Node Electron, so it runs in Chromium, which is what Chrome and now Edge are built on. And they recently added to both Firefox and Chrome, recently added the thing where websites can't start playing sound until you interact with them. So you can't land on a page and have ads start playing loud noise at you, which is fine, but it meant that if I wanted my title screen to sync up with the music, I had to add a press any key at the beginning, because otherwise the title screen would start playing and the Chromium would say, nope, can't start the music, not allowed. And I don't know why, like, Electron runs a fork of Chromium that's slightly different to handle all the Node stuff that it's doing. So why it still has that restriction mystifies me, because there's no reason for it when you're not actually live on the web. And I just want to show off my t-shirt. See it. There we are. Keep calm and serpent venom! That came from one of the festivals of the Silver Serpent, an Ultima-themed party that Unseen Dragon used to throw in Maryland. It ran for 5 years, 4 years, I don't remember now. And he decided to take a break from it. But 1 year they had this thing. It's a joke from Hobloth 2, where during Captain the King's giant offer battle, people would just poison themselves with serpent venom because it kills you in 10 seconds. During those 10 seconds, you're invulnerable. And then we beat each other up screaming, serpent venom! It's hilarious. So, alright, let's just do this. So this is my currently running game. I started this at the beginning. This is a legit playthrough. It is a playthrough that I'm going to have to do again because since starting this, I have fixed the spawners so they actually level up with me. But the currently existing spawners can't because the way the bug worked, they leveled up but didn't actually get the benefits of it. So I would need to delete the scanners, the spawners, and put new ones out, and that would botch other stuff. Like all of the monsters that are currently in the world would then be like, I don't know what spawned me. And that confuses them because they need to report back when they die so the spawner knows that it's allowed to spawn another thing. I also reduced the XP value you get from stuff because I found that I was just leveling up super quick in the early game. So, and as I was talking yesterday on my Discord, I'm going to have to rebalance the weapons and armor a little bit. So I'm going to need to do another run and see how things go. But I am most of the way through Act 1. I have acquired... here's the stat screen. I should make this prettier. Hit points, mana. The strength is showing in blue because it has been increased by something besides just training. I also need to change that. So there's a couple of ways to have your stats go up. Where you start with 10 and everything. I may bump that to 12. Whenever you level, you get 3 training points. You can talk to the 2 trainers in the main castle and add those train points to your strength, your dex, or your int. Training points can only increase a stat to a max of 25. The armor you wear has a strength requirement. The missile weapons you fire have a dex requirement, but you can always use any melee weapon. And you can also raise your strength by casting spells or drinking potions. And that's temporary. And that's what that blue is supposed to represent. But I had also added another way to permanently increase your stats, which is much like Ultima 4, there are orbs in some dungeons and some out-of-the-way places that are single use. If you leave the dungeon and re-enter, they'll be gone. And they will increase one of your stats. I have so far this run found a single strength orb, and one of the things that I have decided is that I should add a couple more orbs to the early game. Excuse me. But so the game sees that my strength is higher than my base strength, which is just what I got from training points. And so it's showing that in blue. But what blue is supposed to represent there is you have a temporary buff on this stat. It'll also go red if an enemy casts curse on you or something. So I need to fix that. This is the inventory screen. This is a lot better than what I originally had, which was all of this in text. The dark blue circle, or dark blue border, means you currently have this equipped. White is the cursor. It's light blue if it's a white cursor over blue. One of the things that I should do is I should have it sort your equipped things to the front. Also, this is a ring of fire resistance. I added this really recently. I wanted a unique item to put behind an optional puzzle. And when you pick it up, you just kind of automatically put it on. But I don't have like a ring slot It's not an equipable, like there is in the code. Yeah, let's bring up the code since I'm actually streaming in Medium, and so you can see the text. So here's the code that defines objects, or items. So items are a inherit from feature, and items get quantity. They get a long description, which is this thing that you see on the bottom here. The ring of fire resistance's long description is a ring that confers some resistance to fire. And if an item can be used, there's also a use description. For instance, a scroll of peer. Use it, read the scroll, casting the spell for free. Great. Items are pushable. All items can be pushed and pulled if they're on the floor. And in fact, if you are in a circumstance where you can do this, if you kill something and it drops a chest or perhaps a scroll, and there's a wall of fire nearby or perhaps a fireplace, if you push the scroll into the fireplace, it will catch fire and go away. If you push a chest into the fireplace, the wooden chest will catch fire and spill its contents into the fireplace, each of which may then catch fire. Scrolls will just burn up. Potions will eventually boil away or explode. Poison potions will explode, issuing forth a poison gas. This poison gas does not have an owner, and so if somehow you manage to find a poison potion on the floor, you cannot drop things in the Dark Unknown. Once you pick it up, it's in your inventory. I wanted to prevent you from being able to drop a quest item into a dungeon map and then leave the map and have it go away and render the game unwinnable. I didn't want to have to track that. I didn't want to have to give you ways to get stuff back. You just can't drop things. You can sell them if you can find somebody willing to buy them, but you can't drop them. So if you manage to find a poison potion on the floor somehow, push it into a fireplace, and have a friendly NPC walk nearby, you can poison that NPC, have them die of poison, and not take a karma hit for it. This is so far-fetched that I don't care. I just think it's funny. Anyway, so there's items, and we've got a bunch of items. Hilariously, there's an item called Ambrose Shield. I renamed Ambrose Narani, so it is a shield for Narani, but in the code it's still called Ambrose Shield because I am lazy about large-scale find replace. I'm not sure if I've reused the name Ambrose yet. Ambrose was the tank in a Iron Heroes game that I ran, played by my friend Ben, who was also a backer of one of my Kickstarters. But so, see, here's the Ring of Fire Resistance. It is an item, but it is not. Let's scroll down a bit. Here's all the potions. Here's the scrolls. There's the Adocta Nemesis, which are the spell books you learn spells from. So, inheriting from item is equipable item, and this is armor, melee weapons, and missile weapons only. So, the Ring of Fire Resistance isn't an equipable item, it's just an item. So, despite the fact that you're wearing it, it doesn't show up with the blue box. I feel like it should, and I feel like this is a bug. Or at least a misfeature. So, that is on my to-do list. I have a lot of scrolls. This is partially because I did that really difficult puzzle that I mentioned that the ring was behind. And it's in a mage's tower, and the reward for it is a bunch of chests that are likely to have a lot of scrolls and potions in them. So you pick a direction or you hit enter, and that goes into your inventory. And then, I could read a book. Fall of Targreon. You open to a random page. And then here's just some random story. This is not plot relevant. This is just a book that one of the bards asks you to find. and it's part of the side quest for joining the bards. But it is a book about a mythical sun god, and since light and darkness is the main theme of the game, that's thematic, even though it's not relevant. Like, there's no information in that. There's no content where that it's just like, oh, I read in this fictional book this thing, and that's actually a clue. But almost all of the random fictional things that come up, the random song that the jester will sing for you if you ask him to sing in the main castle, this book, stuff like that, will all somehow, almost all somehow be sun themed or light and dark themed. So my light spell just went out. So hit C for cast, because this is entirely keyboard driven, and it is Ultima, style with a keyboard. Hi, Christy. I didn't notice that was you. Anyway, what was I saying? It is keyboard driven, so Ultima 4 style, where almost every level, or almost every letter does something. In my case, there's a couple of letters that I just never found anything for. J doesn't do anything right now. I'm tempted to make it be journal and actually do have a quest log, bow to modern gaming and put in a quest log. But I have not done that thing yet. Or instead of, a quest log, possibly, just give you an in-game little notebook that you can write your own notes in, so you don't have to just open Notepad or something. But again, since this isn't actually being played on the Commodore or Apple, like Nox Archaist or Unknown Realm, you could easily just open Notepad next to you. That's what I'm doing in my current playthrough of Martian Dreams. So, like, it's one of those things that I feel like maybe I could put an option into the options, and so if you want to be an old school hardcore gamer, you can just disable it. But I know from experience that even hardcore gamers that say, no, you shouldn't have one because we want the old experience, if the option for it exists, they'll use it. Like that came up in Shroud of the Avatar, which didn't have one initially and then added one. And it is my belief that their stats show that basically nobody is ignoring it once it's there. But I did bow to making the UI a little more friendly than just pure keyboard stuff. You don't have to do like cast, pick a circle, pick a spell. I love the spell words from Ultima, but I don't want to just use the Ultima spell words, because that is a little too close to just being like, hey, I'm ripping you off, Electronic Arts, look at me, look at me. All of my spells, I have figured out what their spell words would be in Ultima 4, and in the code, there's even a section that's commented out that lists them. But I started making up my own set of spell words. I was working with my friend Michael, who is a linguist and who is familiar with Old Irish, which is, the language that predates and turned into Irish Gaelic and such. And that is where Adocta Nemesis comes from, is in Old Irish. That means it's basically kind of words bequeathed from heaven, but I decided that was close enough to words from the ether, and thus book from which you can learn a new spell. So I have a couple of spell words from that. I have lightning and light and stuff like that. But then he had to go and have a kid, and I've seen him like once since. So as nice as it would be to have the alphabetical spell words and just be able to be like, cure poison? Okay, CAN, cast and Nox, done. Instead, we pop this up. It populates with just the spells you know. A relatively recent addition is the box at the bottom that will tell you what the spell does. So these are the spells that I know. I am not currently smart enough to cast 5th level spells, so I can't actually cast Summon Ally unless I cast Blessing on myself first, and that does work. I cast Blessing on myself, it buffs all of my stats, I can temporarily cast higher level spells. But in any case, what I am here for is just casting light again. And we go in. This dungeon is Mount Drash. It is named that purely as a friendly reference to Mount Drash, which I thought, was fine. I completely forgot when I did that, because my game takes place kind of on one of the 4 continents from Ultima 1. It takes place 1,000-ish years before Ultima 1 starts. It takes place about 50 years before Mondain makes the gem, roughly. And so I have a couple of references, like, as I go forward, my game series is not going to become Ultima or whatever. I am legally distinct. But I've got stuff in here that if you notice it, you might go, oh, I see what you did there. And Mount Drash was meant to just be a reference. I completely forgot that on the lands of Lord British continent in Ultima 1, Mount Drash was actually one of the dungeons. So, whatever. The yellow text, that is the long description of... for each zone, let's say, I don't want to say map because technically each level of the dungeon is a separate map, but they have a special property. Each map knows what other maps it's linked to. And so when this level of this dungeon is loaded, all of the levels of the dungeon got loaded simultaneously. And if I leave the dungeon, they'll all leave memory. So the first time you enter a new set of maps, if you have not yet seen that map's long text, it will display. And this I did because I wanted to be able to push you towards going to specific places in a couple of the early towns. Specifically, the village that you start near, like you start just south of the main castle, and if you read the intro on the title screen, it ends with, "You've been called to the castle." So you can go in, and when you enter the castle, the yellow text tells you where the throne room is, so you can go find the king. When you go to the village next to the castle, you have a house in that village. It's where you live. But the player doesn't know where that is. The character obviously does. So the yellow text can say, the friendly village, blah, blah, blah. You enjoy it from your house on the west border of the village. And now the player knows where the house is and can go to it. And, one of the things that you start with in your inventory is your house key. The door is locked, but you've got the key so you can get in. Anyway, I went Ultima 6 style with the dungeon, so I didn't have to deal with the 3D style for that Ultima's 1 through 5 used for its dungeons. It's fine. It's not like I couldn't have coded it, but I didn't have tiles for it or graphics for it, and graphics is the one thing that I basically cannot do on my own. You'll notice that these graphics come from a combination of the Ultima 4 upgrade project and various Angband and other roguelike tiles, a handful of tiles I made myself, and a handful of tiles I commissioned from Dominic John. So we get top down in the dungeons. Anytime you're in a zoomed in screen, combat just takes place on that screen. So in dungeons, when we find monsters, we just fight them. Whereas on the surface, if you go next to a monster and you attack it, you go to the zoomed in combat screen like you do in Ultima's 3 through 5. Not all dungeons are this claustrophobic. I specifically called out the claustrophobia of it in the description. Mount Drash is a specific throwback to Bard's Tale and Magic Dungeons. If this were first person, you'd have walls immediately to either side of you. So this is all tight corridors and some rooms. This is messages on walls. This is wind that blows out torches. This is silent areas where you can't cast spells. This is spinner traps, which is the thing that I expect is not going to work when I actually get to them, because I coded them and then got caught up in something else and said, I'll just test these when my playthrough gets to them, which is terrible. Do not recommend. Don't do your coding this way. Write unit tests. I do have unit tests for a lot of things, but I didn't for this. I plead, I plead wanting to get the damn thing done. This project is not 6502. This is going to launch as a Electron built game, which means I should be able to build it for Windows, Linux, and Mac. I have successfully built it for Windows and Linux. I have not managed to build it for Mac yet on the demo. I think I need an actual Mac to build on. And I used to have one at work, but when it died, I swapped it for a Windows machine because at work we were all Mac and Linux, and then we would keep getting handed stuff in like Microsoft Access, and nobody could actually open it. So I just said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to get a Windows box when my Mac died. But it means I can't build on Mac right now. So it is retro in style, but it's going to play on modern systems. This does mean that I don't have memory requirements. I don't have to restrict myself to 3 voices with the music, which I've turned off. When I'm testing, I put the music off. I could turn it back on. Tell me if that's too loud. I'll turn it down. I did compose all of the music in this game. My father is a songwriter in Nashville and has a professional music studio in his basement. So every year for Christmas, I would go there and write some more music for the game. But so maybe this game would be done by now if I had been writing for 6502, writing for the Apple, writing for the Commodore, writing for something where I could not keep feature creeping the darn thing. I just get bored of my own music after a while. But if the feature creep did keep happening, there's over 20 songs in this game. There's, I'd run across a random tile on, Game Dev Market or something for 50 cents that I feel like I could use, buy it, use it. Because I have it, add stuff to the game for it. And then this makes it harder to do one thing that I would like to do, which is commission a unique tile set instead of using this hodgepodge. Because I was using the hodgepodge, I just used everything that appealed to me. And because I was using so many tiles, it was now going to be super expensive to commission my own version of all of those tiles. So that was a mixed blessing in that as well. And also, I don't currently know a tile artist who has the time. Music value. Okay, that's not working anymore. We're supposed to be able to adjust the music volume on this screen. How about I just turn down the Windows volume and see if that's sufficient for the task? Is this better? Yeah, I mean, I have a friend, like I mentioned, Don John, who does pixel art, and he's fantastic. He did all my intro screens and such. And so I've commissioned a handful of tiles from him, but he went back to school and so just doesn't have time to work on a bigger project. Part of me is tempted to book Dennis Loubet, who did the tile set for Ultima 5. And who at one point in the past did offer that he might have time to do a handful of tiles for me. And asked him if he had time for a full tile set project. But, oh man, he would be expensive. So, I just, as a solo dev responsible for, everything going on, I just haven't had the mental bandwidth and energy to do stuff like find the pixel art forums, figure out which ones have people that are active, figure out who is good and that I feel like I can work with, and actually commissioning something from a stranger. So for the time being, I'm sticking with this. My long-term project for the game is finish the version that's on Electron that builds and plays here, but then once it's out and released, port the game to Unity, partially to teach myself Unity, partially to refactor a bunch of stuff that I didn't do optimally so that I could just get it done more quickly. For instance, for the first 50% of working on the project, I tried to be really good about making sure that nothing in the code assumed that you did not have a party. But then I was like, there's no party in this game, there's not going to be. I'm willing to just start implementing that as an assumption to speed stuff up because I really want to get this done. So my current thought is that when I do the Unity port, I'll call it like, the Director's Cut or, Designer Edition or something, and possibly in that interim commission a file set. Anyway, that's the one place that is responsive to the mouse, because that brings up the stats screen. So I had started building that for tablets, and then I decided to prevent that project until I was further along. But I wanted to be able to tap there to bring up the stats screen. So we've got writing on the walls. And I think I should make it so that the text that's actually on the walls is in yellow or something instead of white to make it clearer that that's there. Another thing that I'm waffling on actually right now is... shit. Alright, I'll just turn the music off for now. Sorry about that. Let me see something. Do I have it listed in here? No. I'm wondering if I can just go into my dev. Okay, so how about this? I will Oh, that really didn't work. That doesn't actually sound to me like it changed the volume. It's been a while since I touched this system. Alright, I'm just turning the music back off. Sorry about that. Wow. In television. That's hardcore, old school. Anyway, slimes can split when you hit them. But so one thing about this is if you've got line of sight to somebody, you can shoot at them. And I'm okay with that. Like, you have line of sight down from there to where I first shot the orc because it checks from the corners of your tile. Because it was just too unfriendly if you couldn't see down this hallway until you'd stepped out into it. But it does mean that as you fight, the animation passes through walls, and there's an extent to which I just don't care, but it's not great. I wish it was otherwise. So that's a couple orcs dead. That's some loot. We're exciting. Oh. I wonder if I meant for those chests to be empty, or if I just didn't put anything in them. Uh-oh, getting surrounded. And now I can no longer shoot at the slime because I have somebody next to me. The game knows what melee weapon and missile weapon you have equipped at all times, and it just, you do use whichever one is appropriate. So this is not like Ultima 4 where you can just equip a bow and shoot it even at somebody next to you. But you are generally going to do more damage with a melee weapon than a missile weapon, unless you really haven't been upgrading. So those potions, you see it says an orange potion and a yellow potion. Go into the stats screen. You see the yellow potion here is defined as a lesser heal potion, while the white potion is still just a white potion. I've never drunk a white potion, so I don't know what it is yet. Once I do, it'll start showing it here. White potions cast light. I've got a lot of potion types. Oh yeah, if you go off the right end here, it goes to your spellbook and tells you what spells you know. And this is what runes you have. I have acquired the Rune of Kings. I did that a little bit earlier. But I am considering implementing an Angband mode where it shuffles the colors of potions randomly when you first make your character. Because right now, if you've played Ultima, you're going to guess that the yellow potion is going to heal you. You're going to guess that the red potion is going to cure you. You're going to be right. And the green one's poison. So, it wouldn't be super hard to set it up so that all gets randomized at the start of the game. But I haven't implemented it yet. Just seems funny. But when you pick it up on this screen, it still just says yellow potion. So I was dexterous enough to avoid the poison dart trap. And I get some stuff, but it's not, fantastic. A strange wind blows. If I had been using a torch instead of a light spell, it would have blown out the torch. Interestingly, until very recently, I didn't have torches. When you get a spellbook at the beginning of the game, starts you right off with the light spell because I just wanted you to not have to worry about it. I wound up I've got torches on the walls in places. So At some point, I wound up deciding what the hell, and I added torches. They're not currently in anybody's loot groups. I should add that to be loot drop sometimes. And I currently don't have any NPCs that sell them because I don't have anything else for them to sell. I don't have food. I don't do that. I don't have reagents. In both cases, I decided that those are just gold sinks and that I would handle that a different way. So, I don't have lockpicks. So there's not much for a general store to sell you. But I did set it up so that if you are here with a torch being what's providing you with light, the strange wind will blow it out. Because it would have done so in Bard's Tale, and that's where we are today. So, those guys aren't so tough. Chainmail. I've already got chainmail. Now, yeah, you see to the map thou must there as you wander around. Various things will get said, and you're supposed to record them all and figure out what's important, what means what. Alright, this is where you first walked in. I have a bad feeling that there is text somewhere that isn't working because I feel like to the map thou must was supposed to be part of a longer thing. So let's no. Oh, right. The Uphouse is part of something, but I forgot my own tricks with this. So, to the map thou must appears in silver writing. And as you walk around, also see... Oh, something exploded. Something exploded. Whose turn is it? Oh. What? Oh. Yeah, so, okay, I mentioned before that I expected the spinner tiles to break. I'll pull my dev console over here onto the main screen. And indeed, what happened was a Drake down on the 7th floor, maybe, has stepped on one of my spinner tiles and it broke. Now, what is supposed to happen is not a damn thing. Because, here's the problem. Because the spinner tile is only supposed to do something if the player steps on it. And indeed, the section of code that handles that I added a thing recently where all walk-on tiles are required to return an object that has a message property so that it can add whatever's in that to the text response it's giving to whatever function brought you there, which is usually move. And when I did that, I had to go through all of my walk-on tiles and edit their return values, and I missed that there's the check at the beginning of that walk-on tile to see if the person walking on it is the player, and if not, just return and don't do anything. And since that return didn't have a message, it exploded. Yes, I could have made it friendlier about capturing the error when that happens, but my general thought on that is if it explodes each time it happens, then I fix each one as it happens, and then I won't have a problem. So, back in here again. So, yeah, you can see when you first walk in, there's just writing on the walls. But as you walk, here's black writing. So the black writing says one thing. So on each level of dungeon, you will find a couple of words in each of those colors. Oh, an axe. That is actually an upgrade from the mace. So what up? Switch to it. Oh, and these are the ones that came out empty last time, so I think. So I'm going to look into and make sure. So chests in dungeons, I did not want you to be able to farm them, but I also didn't want them to no longer have loot at all. So chests in dungeons, I've gotten real lucky with slime splitting, or it's broken. Chests in dungeons each have a property on them that is basically the name of that chest, and when you open the chest, that gets written. So here's silver writing. We had black and silver. That gets written as a flag, and flags are how I store, your long-term progress in the game. So when you open a chest, first thing that happens is it checks to see whether the flag for you having ever opened this chest before has already been tripped. And if you've previously opened that chest, it just contains like 2d4 gold. So you don't get nothing, but you don't get whatever you started with. Whatever was there the first time. So I walked around this whole dungeon and only saw 2 colors of text. There is supposed to be red, and it is supposed to be on 14.8. So I'm going to see. Oh, it's all the way up. And there's the problem. Okay. So 14.8 is a weird place for me to have put that. That requires you to actually stand on the chest once you've looted it. And that's not terrible, but what it means is my hack fucking code here looks at that space, grabs the top feature, which is the chest, not the walk-on, sticks the message on the chest, and then if you walk there, there's no message. So I can never remember if it's get all features or if it's get features. It's just get features. do I have a sound cue for the writing popping up because you could miss it? That is the main reason I want to have it pop in another color text instead of the white. But a sound cue is a good idea that I hadn't actually, to be honest, considered. And I will think about that because that is a good idea. That I definitely, it's important. That brings us something I started to mention earlier, then got sidetracked. That I've been thinking about and thought about again while watching Jared play 2400 AD, which is I'm considering taking the move messages out of the log over here because it's not, it's not super important. Like maybe I would show it when I want to show that, move east blocked. But when you're just walking, it's just filling up your log. The other thing I vaguely considered was doing the Angband thing and putting a little, if you move south 3 times in a row, the second time, instead of adding another one, put ×2, ×3, ×4. But then as you're walking around, it's still filling up. You're just seeing a bunch of move norths and then a bunch of move easts and then a bunch of move souths or whatever. So the moves I may just take out of the display there. But in any case, what's happening here is, the message is getting applied to the wrong thing. So walk on message. So instead, we're going to go through, we're going to grab all the features on that tile. We're going to go through all of them. And then, actually, and then we're going to say walk on if it's actually the walk-on tile, then add the message to it. So there we go. And since I hadn't really done much in there, except, well, I got that axe. That's going to be a shame to have lost that. Then I had my first run in here. I picked up a longsword somewhere, which is a, 5 or 10% drop out of one of the chests or one of the orcs or something. A bad feeling that the slime split isn't working anymore. But anyway, I'm going to see if that last walk-on works now. No, I think those chests, most chests are guaranteed to have gold, and there's just a chance of other stuff. But it may well be that those chests have a chance for everything, including gold, and that I actually just rolled. Nope. So I currently have the sticky targeting option turned on, where the targeting cursor will stay on whatever you last targeted. And you can turn that off if you prefer, but it was a extraordinarily popular request when I released the demo, and I understand. Yeah, okay. Got my other text. That's working. I eventually am going to implement the ability to throw green potions at things, because that just seems funny. But it's actually a giant pain in the ass, because right now when you use something, it goes straight to the code for use. And so to do that means making it such that when you hit use something, the code then sends it into a bring up a prompt to decide what to do, and then you can choose drink or throw. And I would like to do that because I have other things that I want to give players choices with. I have apple trees, and I kind of want to implement apples, and I kind of want to have you be able to feed the apples to horses. I haven't decided if there's any point to that. I just kind of want to do it. That's... Oh, right. Yeah. That's unknown. Oh, but that's going to... God damn it. Okay. That brings that to an end for now, because of a thing that was on my to-do list the other day that I didn't get to, and then the next day I sat down and said, there was something I was supposed to do, but I can't think of it, so I guess I finished it. I screwed up. I have some monsters that have in their definition that something happens when they die. But the monster definitions are generated by code off of a Google Doc. And I can show that Google Doc. And it is here. So here we are. Category level. Additional hit points besides the randomly somewhere around 10 per level that monsters get. So monsters and players are both levels 1 through 8. I think I might have a level 9 monster. I think like the Abyssal Kraken might be level 9. Yeah, the Abyssal Kraken is level 9. And the 4 archdemons will be level 9. But so for the player, your max hit points is 30 times your level. For monsters, it's 10 times your level. So we've got your weapon damage, your move type. Do you move? Are you ethereal? Do you fly? Do you leave a corpse? Do you leave a pile of blood? If none, you leave a chest. If you drop loot at all. The description when you're looked at. But then on hit and on damaged, and then some things have as a special and on death. Those are things for the specials. The way I implemented it is the monster's created. Whenever something's added to the map, the first thing that happens is if it has a activate method, that method runs. For monsters, the activate method looks and checks what's in the specials field and then actually sets them up. Some specials don't need to be set up. Open door, that's just a flag that says when this creature is walking from place to place, it's allowed to open doors. Coward means we'll always run from combat. Undead doesn't do anything special. It just renders it immune to things that that think it's alive and make it damaged by the Disrupt Undead spell. Similarly, giant insects are mindless. You will not see them if you cast telepathy, and they won't be hurt by Mind Blast. But there's a handful of monsters that I wanted to have something happen when they die. So I gave them a special, and then when they are activated, if they have that special, an on-death method is attached to the object. Here's the problem. When the game is saved, it can't save methods. It just saves properties. So I can't do things like add methods after the fact. After the thing's been placed. I ran into this a whole bunch because I originally just had one walk-on tile, and I would just change the method attached to it to have it do whatever it wanted to do. But the problem was that then that would not get persisted through saves. So I had to define a whole bunch of separate walk-on tiles. Now, if I wasn't generating my monster stuff through a Perl script that looks at a tab-delimited file that I pulled down from a Google Doc, I could just add to the monster property, the monster definition, the class, the on-death. But because I'm generating that file programmatically, I would need to either have a section at the bottom where I manually add stuff, or a section in the Perl script where I manually add stuff to have it right at each time, which is what I do for a couple of things. Or I have to change the way this works, and on death have everything have an on death function that when it dies checks its specials for the on deaths and then calls their special on death functions. This is relatively straightforward, needs to happen, but means that when the autosave runs, when you try to change floors in the dungeon, the game explodes because it sees something that it doesn't know how to save. So I'll need to fix that. But you got to see a chunk of dungeon. You got to see what a bunch of the UI looks like. See me walk around. I will, just for demonstrative purposes, start a new character and just go talk to a couple people just to show that off. This is. Music always plays during the title stuff, so once I get into game, I'll turn the music back on. There we go. That's all character creation is right now. I need to make it a little more pizzazz to it, but there's basically no choices that are important that you make. You name your character, you pick which graphic to use, and that's even a thing that I'll get rid of if I do wind up commissioning a tile set, because I will instead go with the version where I can swap out what weapon you're seen holding based on what weapon you have in game, blah, 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 blah. But as is, you pick your name, you pick your gender, so that it properly selects what honorifics to give you. In some parts of dialogue, you'll talk to an NPC, but if there's another NPC nearby, they'll chime in. And so when they're talking to each other, sometimes they'll use pronouns for you. But there is no in-game relevance to any of this. It doesn't care what your name is. It doesn't care which graphic you use. It doesn't care what gender you play. So here's Naurglen. Here's the little blurb that appears. It is a single map. I don't have separate maps for Naurglen East and Naurglen West. but I separately added entrances to the west and to the main part, because the main part is where most of the NPCs live. There's the healer, Hazel. There's the inn. There's the tavern. While the western section at the far end is where your house is. And I wanted you to be able to visit your house without having to walk into the main entrance and do this walk. Because when I added NPC schedules, I turned this into one of the larger maps in the game for towns, because I added all that farmland. And then here's your house. You can separately use the key on the door to lock and unlock it, but if you use the door while it's locked with the key in your inventory, you'll automatically unlock it and open it. Now you can see that this dude down here, that is Avery, he is your servant and tutor in this little house. You have been living here apart from your family for a little while. Your family lives in the castle. But originally, people who didn't have like one of the Ultima classes just used the townfolk tile. And so everybody looked the same. And when you don't have character portraits, which, oh my God, I would love to have character portraits, but that would be a giant pile of money. You need a little more to help differentiate people. So one of the things I commissioned from Dom was just take that graphic and give people some different colored shirts. But one of the things that happened when he did that was I got versions of some of those graphics that don't that have a transparent background instead of, as you can see around me, the black background. On the eventual to-do list is to go into all of my NPC graphics and get rid of the backgrounds, but it hasn't been super important. So here's the house. You can talk to anybody within 3 squares. It puts a little border up around them to show who you're talking to. He gets a little snarky at you if you don't remember his name. And he doesn't actually have anything interesting to say right now. You see, he says, "Farewell, Lord." He would have said lady if I had chosen female. I think he uses Lord for male or for declined estate. But not everything is like that. For instance, the king and queen, you'll be called prince, princess, or heir, depending on whether you are marked as male, female, or non-binary / declined estate. But you can run around your house and you can search your own bookshelves. You can see which ones you've searched already because they become super messy. Clock's going off. And it's sunrise and sunset are at 6, I think. And I did that so that, noon would be actual noon. But it means that the sun is all the way there when the clocks chime 12, and that just feels alien to modern people whose lives are, there's a morning and it's noon and then most of the day starts. So I keep considering changing that. In my room, I don't think there's actually, there's something in the dresser. I wanted to give the player a couple, and that was actually noon, that was 12 monks. I wanted to give the player a couple of extra yellow potions. Also, the mirrors, when you step on the space south of a mirror, it replaces the glass section with your picture. So whatever dude you look like, that's replicated in the mirrors. There is one haunted house with get out of my way, with a cursed mirror that when you step up next to it, it shows a demon instead. And also, you can push stuff around. Yep, that's 1 o'clock. I've spent that long in here, I guess. So that's pushing and pulling. And if you use a chair, you'll change its facing. This just, whatever. Oh, I may have screwed myself a little bit. Okay, there we go. He will not push that plant out of the way unless it is completely blocking him in. So I made it really difficult for myself to get out past him. So here's the castle. Why do I have chicken graphics? Because I found chicken graphics. And I said, hey, sure, let's make some chickens. There's the stables. And you saw somebody running by. I think that was the cook. It's evidently a shift change for the guards somewhere. Oh, I think it's dinner time. So this is actually a great thing to show off. People are showing up in here, and I just got here a little too late. This guy to my northeast, the guy with the brown tunic, kind of hard to see against the cobblestones. That's one of the things that if I get into Talstet, it's one of the things that I'm trying to figure out how to fix is the problem is that my NPCs, the graphics for them extend all the way to the edges of their tiles. And so I can't do the thing that I do for items. All items have a single pixel black border. So the guy in the brown tunic there, Sean, is a little difficult to see. There are some people that are really hard to see when they're sitting down. So as you can see, some people have light skin and some people have dark skin. If you have dark skin and you're sitting facing north, it's a lot harder to see that you're there. And I haven't figured out how to cope with that yet. But I got here just too late to show that Sean and I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the main servant who's up there against the wall in the north, they actually walked in, and these tables were clear, and they walked up to each table, and then the plate and silverware graphics appeared in front of the chairs at the table that they walked to, and then they walked to the next part of a table, put food down, and they put all the food down. It's one of my favorite little bits. You will only see it if you happen to be in this room during the big dinner. But whatever. Setting up the NPC schedules to get everybody in here without everybody getting in each other's ways. It was kind of a giant clusterfuck. But I need to talk to the king. This is the first time talking to him, so he has a whole speech. Keywords in blue are the ones that you can type a follow-up for. And then originally I was going to have you just start with 100 gold, but I decided to make it extra important that the player actually go into the damn castle first and talk to the king as the first thing that happens, because I decided not to write dialogue for basically everybody that was different if you hadn't done that yet. So everybody just assumes you have, and I discouraged that particular piece of sequence breaking by making it really useful to talk to him because you get your starting money. He tells you to go in disguise. And go in disguise just means because you are the second child of the king and queen. But I didn't want you to be able to walk into a shop and just be like, "Hi, I'm Prince Dude. Just give me your best armor." I had to do the usual video game Adam Smith hates your guts thing. So the king is making this a test. Your older brother has gone into rebellion. That's what this whole problem is. He's no longer the heir. You are now the heir. He wants you to solve this problem without using your extra cachet as the heir to prove that you can. To prove that, to make this be something. This is your first task as to be ruler of the kingdom, is fix this problem. So he tells you to do it in disguise. And he also tells me to go up to my old room and grab my old stuff there. He says, "How can I help your quest?" And that's a keyword because I wanted there to be a way that you could get that information that he spills at you when you first talk to him again. Because one of the design goals in the game has been that the game cannot be put into an unwinnable state. And if you put the game down, lose all of your notes, and pick it back up, you should be able to walk around and talk to everyone and figure out what to do. So there is nothing that someone will tell you that you still need to know that they'll only tell you once. They might tell you something towards the purposes of a side quest, but then say something differently once you've finished that side quest, and that's fine because you finished the side quest. And so even if you pick the game back up, you might not remember whether or not you've done that side quest. Sure, but it's not going to make it harder for you to win the game to have that person not say those things anymore. So they'll say thank you or whatever. But I don't know if I've 100% managed it, but my goal is anything that you still need to know for what you're working on, NPCs should still be willing to tell you. I had to have the king give you directions to your room because the player doesn't know where it is, even though it's kind of goofy that the player wouldn't. Those are stairs down. Here's some stairs up to the wrong side of the second floor. But what you're going to do, here's the other stairs up. This one's your room. And it starts you with leather armor and a short sword. I did this because and a little bit of money. When I put out the first demo and had people play it at the Ultima Dragon 25th Anniversary Bash, people went on the one dungeon run that you can do in the demo and got their asses handed to them repeatedly. It's possible to, like with your starting money, you can head over to Hildendane, the other town that is accessible in the demo. I put force fields around a chunk of the world in the demo, so you can only visit the castle, Naurglen, and Hildendane. And I do not have a spellbook yet, so I don't have the light spell. And I will walk into Hildendane, which there's a little bit of light in there because there's a light source inside there. And then I'm just going to wait for a little while. That was not long enough. Here we go. So, the smart players came into here, the weapon and armor shop, whose merchants are still currently either asleep or, they just got up. Now, did you see that? He sat down, and then once he had sat down, he put food in front of himself. It wasn't there when he first sat down. She'll do the same thing, I think. Yep. So this is a family. I need to fix that. And then make it work. So the smart players could come in here, and upgrade their cloth armor to leather with that starting 100 gold. Or their starting dagger for a short sword. But I decided to just be like, okay, you know what? If you actually go through and talk to the king and do everything he says, you can get some starter equipment. And so now you start the game wearing cloth and wielding a dagger, but before you fight anything, you probably have a short sword and leather armor. And then here we've got the Ultima style battlegrounds. Oh, right. New game. You don't start with a missile weapon. If you go into Naurglen, which I skipped except for going into my own house, and talk to people there, and if I had talked to more people in the main castle, I would have been sent there by Jarden, the castle wizard, who says, if you'll do me a quick favor, I'll give you a spell book, and sends you over to Naurglen to get something from Hazel, the healer. She sends you to talk to a couple of people. Among the people you talk to are some retired adventurers. If you talk to them enough, they will give you a sling. That gets you your starting missile weapon. So, with just leather armor and a short sword and no missile weapon, this is actually a hard fight. Oh, and I do not currently have sticky targeting enabled because that is... Okay. I did get a yellow potion from my room in my house. Let's use that. And hey, I lived! It was hilarious. I hit a trap and blew up. Green potion. Thanks. So nothing really useful there except I can go and sell the short sword and the dagger. Oh good. Screw it. I'm leaving. Fleeing combat costs you karma if you are higher than first level. If you are first level, you can go ahead and run from whatever. That the orc is currently standing on the town is a bug. The AI for monsters is supposed to check whether there is something civilized nearby and refuse to move within 3 tiles of a town. But there's a lot of functions that govern movement. Sometimes they're random walking, sometimes they're leashing back to their spawn point, sometimes they're hunting the PC. Somewhere in there is some form of movement that doesn't have that check, and I haven't found what it is yet. I'm writing down on the notebook next to me. That's a thing I really should just goddamn deal with. Because it is meant to be that if you are standing on a town, you are safe. Monsters will not approach because they're afraid of the guards. But as is, that's not working, and I'm not sure why. It literally has not been working for years. It's just been such a low priority issue that I haven't bothered looking into it. But maybe I'll give it a quick pass. There is no penalty for death. You die, it goes to 9 a.m. the next day, and you're resurrected in the castle. There is even an in-game reason, a logic, for why you can get resurrected by the king and queen, but nobody else can. And it is related to the Rune of Kings that I showed earlier that my main character had, and the ability to act along the royal bloodline. But otherwise, there are places where dying is just a shortcut home. Shit, man. There's one place where I set it up deliberately expecting you to die on something. There is a thing that you can do that will make you smarter and kill you. And I recommend you do it after you've done everything else you need to do in that area, because it does send you home because you died. But that's actually at the end of the dungeon that I had started doing earlier in the stream. But otherwise, yeah, no XP penalty for death. no nothing. Just don't worry about it. So, uh, you're generally not. You're disincentivized to run from fights because if you die, whatever. Karma was a late added system. I described it a little bit on my previous live stream, but the chain of events was I added a paladin NPC in one of the towns. Just using the paladin Ultima 4 graphic. I decided she was actually a paladin. I decided that she would respond to you asking paladin because of the What's a Paladin meme. I therefore created a paladin order that she was a part of, and then added an entire side quest chain for you to join them. The game itself does not require you to be good, like Ultima 4 might, but joining the paladins does. So you need to have positive karma, or actually you need to have not gotten more than 1 or 2 instances of negative karma ever to let the paladins let you join. And so that means fleeing from stuff when you're above first level, attacking civilians, and stealing stuff out of chests and boxes. You can actually freely rifle through their bookshelves, but if it's in a chest or a box and you take it, you will take a karma hit. Once I added karma, I decided to have it do something a little more, and your XP gain actually runs through a multiplier that where any XP you gain is increased by a percentage based on your karma. So if you have obtained 10 positive karma total over the course of the game so far, you will overall get 10% additional XP from stuff. So if you kill something worth 10, it's worth 11. The game does track fractional XP even if it doesn't show you you're getting it. So, but this also applies if your karma goes below 0. Go in and attack a town and tank your karma, and you'll start having trouble leveling. You will, in theory, if you just keep going in and attacking towns to loot townsfolk thinking it's Ultima 3, you will eventually get to the point where you are getting 1% XP. And that does kind of make the game unwinnable, but I feel like you walked into that one. I might cap the penalty at like 50% or something, but in any case. So there is a small benefit to karma, but it's not an important part of the game, but it's there. Anyway. Yeah, see, now the orc walked away from the town and won't walk back, so I'm not sure why he walked up to it. I don't want to fight you, but you're faster than me. Movement and initiative is governed like Ultima 5 does it, more or less. The game works in ticks internally. Each tick is 5 minutes. Each step on the surface is 1 tick. Each step in a zoomed in map is 1/5 of a tick. Whoops. But basically, depending on which map type you're on, it scales. It's a 5-to-1 time scale. Each step is 5 minutes on the surface. Each step is 1 minute in a tab. Before I added NPC schedules and actual clocks, the difference was like 200 to 1. But that got insane once I added NPC schedules. Or more to the point, that got insane once I added day-night cycles, because either time is basically frozen in towns, or the sun is setting every 10 steps you take. So I shifted to a 5-to-1, which I think is... Somewhere I took notes on what Ultima 5's difference is. I think Ultima 5 is 2-1. Anyway, so when your turn ends, it figures out when your next turn should be. And then, if you're on a zoomed in map, it divides that by 5, the amount of time between now and your next turn. And then it places you into the timeline, which is just an ordered list of when people go. And it's just if the internal clock, the tick is 10, and you're outside and your dex is your starting dex, if you take a step along the grass, you will next go on 11. It'll put you after all of the monsters that go between 10 and 11. If you take a step into the forest, then it's 1.3-ish. If you take a step along a road, it's 0.8-ish. If your dexterity is better than 10, you go slightly faster. So those rats were faster than me, so I took a step to the south, and then they got 2 turns in the time in between my 2 turns, and so were able to catch up to me and attack me. Anyway, I don't have anything else in particular to show about this. Line of sight code is all my own hack. I had considered just stealing Angban's style and decided to do it myself. It draws rays from the center and 4 corners of my tile to the center and 4 corners of any given tile, and it calculates whether or not line of sight is blocked by tracing along that ray, seeing how much of that ray passes through any given tile that blocks line of sight, like the mountains. And so each tile has a block value. And so if you pass through the entire tile, you apply the entire block value. Then you add up all the block values along your ray, and if that's greater than 0.95 or something like that, then you cannot see the tile you're looking at. But this means you can clip a wall, which has a block value of 2. But so long as less than, 1/4 of the length of that tile is passed through, it doesn't completely block you. Unless you also clip another wall, in which case, okay, now there's 2 walls in your way and you can't see. It worried me a little bit when I wrote it because it's a little math intensive, but this is the kind of thing that I absolutely could not do if I was writing on old hardware because it's too math intensive and I can get away on a modern computer. This is the Bat Cave. Or Headless Cave. There's a quest to come in here. There is absolutely no possible way that in fact, I just died. When you get the quest to come in here, the quest giver hands you a box with additional healing potions. That's what happens when you die. Death also has its own song. And then you're back in the throne room. And I had to set the clock to 9 a.m. when you die because I needed to make sure that the king was present to resurrect you and did not want him resurrecting you wherever he happened to be at the time, including asleep. So it waits you to 9 a.m. The thing that I'm waffling about is whether to do the same thing with sleeping at an inn. At the moment, sleeping at an inn just waits 8 hours and heals you extra. So that means if you go to sleep at sunrise, you will wake up a couple hours before sunset. But if I always have sleeping at the inn go till 9 a.m, you might check in at 7 a.m, and that might not be what you intended. You might have actually wanted to get a full night's sleep and get that additional heal, and you don't want to be paying for the room at the inn to just sleep for 2 hours. So at the moment, you just sleep 8 hours. I don't know what's better, but whatever. So anyway, You can look. There's signs here that help you navigate the castle because the castle is quite large. To the east over there is K. That's the jester. His name is K because he is a reference to Danny Kaye in the old movie The Court Jester, as is that line. And as is with some work, you can make a fool of yourself. That's all taken pretty straight from the dialogue of Court Jester, which is a fantastically funny ancient movie. If you ask him a song, he will sing a song about day and light. Again, touching on the themes of the game, even though he doesn't know what's going on. If you ask him for a story, no, that's not right. Tales, there it is. If you listen to his tale, he tells a story that basically he's aiming at you. It's a story about a younger child becoming the best choice to be the heir to a kingdom. But the entertaining thing about the story is that the character talks to an elf and a dwarf and a strange creature covered in fur from head to toe. My game does not have elves, dwarves, fuzzies, or bobbits, but I wanted to at least vaguely reference them, and so they're in this story. And you can ask, and he says, it's said that the previous version of the land, which was unmade by Tethlokel the Destroyer, and that's a story that's described in the Almanac, the physical book that comes with a physical version of the game, but also exists as a PDF, that in that version of the land, there were elves and dwarves and stranger things, and now there aren't. And then he notes, I don't know how we would know. Nothing survived from then. That's the thing that I had to give him to say, because the biggest problem with keyword response dialogue is that I can't offer the player the option of saying something interesting based on their stats. I would have really liked to have him be able to tell this story, and then if your int was at least 13 or something, add to your dialogue options. How would we know? And that's the kind of thing that a Baldur's Gate style, Ultima 7 style dialogue system can do, but an Ultima 5, 6 style keyword response system cannot. I could, in theory, have him respond to things differently based on your stats. That's fine. But I can't prompt you to say something different. He also, asks a riddle. And if you correctly answer the riddle, he will tell you where there's a secret door on the second floor that has some additional gear and loot that you can start with. I took the riddle out of it's one of the old standbys, but I used this one in particular because it's in one of my favorite movies, Mirror Mask by Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean. But I'm not going to spoil the answer to the riddle. So if you step next to a fountain, ambient sound will fade in of the fountain burbling. Same things happens with fireplaces. I considered adding a tick-tock to the clocks and then decided that that's actually super annoying, so I didn't. There's something else that has ambient noise, but I'm spacing on what it is off the top of my head. Anyway, that's more of a demo of this than I had expected to do, to be perfectly honest. But Jared led into me saying I was going to, and I didn't really mind. I did do some debugging, and I have written down my list of, oh God, fix these things now, that I will do after I turn off this stream. But another thing that I am going to mention here first, because y'all are here. I don't know how many of y'all are still here, but there's still a good number of you here. This is an announcement that I'm going to make soon in other places, but I have decided to expand the name of the game. The Dark Unknown is not easily searchable, is not particularly unique, and is specific to the villain of this game. So if I wanted to do sequels, it becomes something of an artifact title. Also, I became aware when they accidentally mistagged me that there is a survival horror indie game called Dark Unknown currently in development. They have a Facebook group, and when they tried to link to it, they accidentally linked to mine. And if they come out first, I don't know what happens legally. It becomes a little bit of a minefield. Like, maybe they'll be perfectly pleasant and won't say anything. I certainly don't give a shit if I come out first. But it becomes theoretically possible that they could be like, hey, you can't use that name. So, having considered a number of options, you can see on the screen here that this is the lands of Eleusis. Eleusis was the name of my land for my Iron Heroes D&D game. And I decided to use it again here. And so the game is going to be renamed Chronicles of Eleusis 1, The Dark Unknown. This hasn't really been implemented, but I have been playing with graphical options for the title screen for that. So you heard it here first. But it has been almost 3 hours of streaming, and I'm at the point where I'm going to need to just dive into code, which maybe you would find interesting, but I'm not sure is super interesting, but also I'd kind of like to have some dinner. So I'm going to call it, although I'm going to wait a couple minutes from saying that because it will be a little bit before it propagates to y'all, and I want to see if anybody has any last questions or comments in the chat. But thank you for putting up with the technical difficulties at the beginning. I will probably try to get Jared to see if he can help me get the other streaming app to work better, the Streamlabs OBS. Yeah, I considered Tapestry of Ages The Dark Unknown, but Tapestry of Ages Games is the name of the game company, and I worried a little bit about that redundancy. It's still on the list of it could be Tapestry of Ages. Also, it's more directly an Ultima 9 reference, whereas Chronicles of Eleusis gives you a unique word that you could Google search for and find nothing but me. And that was something that I liked. But I'm glad you liked what you saw. I'm glad you, did not point and laugh when it crashed out a couple times. But yeah, it is quite far along in development, and I plan to really put the nose to the grindstone and get it finished later this year. I'm just hoping that as the year progresses, Nox Archaist, Scald Against the Black Priory, Unknown Realms, and I can space our releases enough that we don't cannibalize each other's money and fanfare. I don't want to have nobody play this because I come out at the same time, because I come out a week after Nox Archaist. I don't want fewer people to buy Scald because they're playing this, So the game is long. I'm not sure how long Nox is, but my understanding is it's respectably long. Like 40, 50 hours, something was. I don't know. I remember Jared or Mark on the stream saying something that was basically in line with, um, you know, a modern RPG release. I remember, I think Scald is meant to be a lot shorter. Unknown Realm is somewhere in that time. I am pretty sure, with all of the feature creep and stuff that I've put into this, that this game is longer than Ultima 5. Yeah, so I think this and Nox are going to be of similar, pretty epic for their kind of game length. And I I mean, I am pretty sure that if you do all of the side quests in this, it's going to be at least a 100-hour process. This is partially because unless I cut them, I talked about in the previous stream that I have like entire elemental planes that you can visit that are 100% optional. And if you do all of the side quests that get you access to those, learn how to go there, go and explore them, and all that stuff, this will be somewhere in that range. The dialogue system is deep enough and supports enough that there are a lot of places where if you haven't been told something yet, somebody won't yet respond to the next keyword. But there's a number of places where I didn't bother with that, and I don't mind if you sequence break. I didn't want to make it completely impossible. If you've played the game before, there's some stuff that you can just skip to. You can walk straight up to the castle guard, the captain of the guard in the castle, and mention the Headless Cave, and she'll send you to clear it out, even if Erin up in Hildendane has not yet complained that she's had trouble getting supplies sent to the castle because they're getting preyed upon by the Headlesses. So, in some places you can do that, but in some places, if somebody hasn't said, go do this and talk to this person, you can't talk to the person. But as I have been playing through in my longer playthrough, I started trying to think about if there's stuff I can cut, because I was worrying about it being a little long. I mean, I'm also seriously considering adding, at least for my own use, a clock counter. Like, if you look here, the save game screen tells you when that save was made. And that's how you find your last save, which is fine. But I'm considering replacing that with a minutes or hours played, which, works just as well. Or possibly have there be a screen in the stats section that shows you that kind of thing. Or possibly just have it be something that you can only access through the dev console. But I'm considering adding such a screen to see how long the actual playthrough is. My problem is that there's a lot of side quests, but the main quest is a little disappointingly linear. There's a couple of places where you can work on multiple things at a time, but a lot of it, you can't do the next thing until you do the thing. And then there's places where it's like, go do this and come back and talk to me. Okay, you've done it. Now go do this other thing and come back and talk to me. Which on one hand is a little FedExy, but on the other hand, I'm like, I could cut this one, but this is also the first place in the game where someone specifically sends you to this one town. And gives you, and therefore, makes it likely that you'll do a bunch of the side quests that are there and get the other information that you need from there. And so I don't really want to cut part of the main quest that sends you to some place that's the first time you get sent there, because you're a player that is following the main quest and only getting side quests as they stumble upon it. Like, some players are going to be like, it's an open world and wander wherever, and that's great, and there'll be stuff they can do everywhere. Like, there's no town where you get there and there's nothing to do because you got there before you were sent there. There's at least some side quests to do. But there are points in the main quest that send you to each of the towns to make sure that you get there at some point. And so I don't really want to cut those. So I am waffling, and it's going to come down to, there's the other problem, of course, that I know what to do at each step and will never spend 2 hours running around trying to find the next person to talk to or whatever. So once I finish Act 1 and put out a call for Act 1 beta testers and have people actually play through it for real in what is more or less a final version of Act 1 modulo fixes, I will see how they feel about the length and about how much running around there is. Let me load my actual current game, which is this one. I will note that one of the spells that I added to the game is which just shortcuts you back here. Or if you cast it from inside any dungeon, sends you to the entrance of the dungeon, where you can properly cast it again and go back to the castle. That was a spell that actually was originally even higher level than that, and I was just like, no. Give that to the player relatively early, so that some of the running around in the world can be skipped. You still have to walk 2 places, but you don't necessarily have to walk back. And there are places where the return spell doesn't work, and there are places where you have to give it an extra jolt of power to be able to use it. But in any case, thank you again. Despite the start, I will still call this a successful stream. I will try to get Streamlabs OBS working better, because I do want the stream to be one where the chat is visible in the stream, so that when the stream moves to YouTube later, the chat's not lost. But I very much appreciate having as many people as are also working on this kind of game, or if not this kind of game, retro game in general. We're here. It is always nice to get feedbacks and comments, and if nothing else, commiseration from people who are also deep in the pixel mines, staring at code and trying to figure out why the hell the orc is willing to walk up to the town. But having said I want to dinner like 20 minutes ago, my 6 o'clock take your meds alarm just went off, and that is as good an opportunity as any to stop streaming. Also, that means I can let my roommates start using the internet again, because they're being good and trying not to do anything so that they don't eat up any of the bandwidth. So that's going to be it for here. Need to find the UI for killing the stream, and I will do this again sometime or another. It will be in a couple of weeks, because in 2 weeks I am going to be on a boat. I am going on the Joko cruise, Jonathan Colton, if you're familiar with his music. It is a week-long cruise that is basically a nerd convention with concerts on a boat. And it is basically the one super expensive vacation thing that I do every other year or so. So I will be offline entirely. I am not paying the exorbitant fees for their internet, and I'm certainly not going to try to stream from it. So probably see you in about a month. At which point I will probably start poking Jared and see if he wants to run around in a demo version himself as someone who is not trying to break things and does not know what he's doing. So thanks again, and